The crystal spires of the consortium tower reached into the purple sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces gleaming with the light of 3 suns. Inside the highest chamber, representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species gathered around a table made from solidified starlight. Each being present had conquered worlds, commanded fleets, and shaped the fate of countless civilizations. Admiral Zexthai of the Zephyrian High Command stood at the head of the table, his silver skin reflecting the ambient light as his forearms gestured toward the holographic display floating in the center. The image showed a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, unremarkable except for the rapidly expanding network of lights that indicated growing civilization. Earth, Zexthai said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. A primitive world that achieved faster than light travel only 50 of their years ago. Yet they have already established colonies in 7 star systems and refuse to acknowledge consortium authority. Counselor Vorthka, whose cybernetic implants covered half her reptilian face, leaned forward with interest. Her people had conquered 1,000 worlds through calculated precision and overwhelming technology. What makes them different from the other primitive species we have absorbed? The display shifted to show human ships moving between star systems. They were crude vessels compared to elite technology, held together with metal welding and powered by simple fusion reactors. Yet they moved with purpose and coordination that surprised the assembled leaders. They spread faster than any species we have encountered, Zexthai explained. Most primitive civilizations take centuries to establish their first colony. These humans have built 15 and 50 years. They also refuse to follow proper first contact protocols. High Sage Keithnall spoke from his place at the table, his ethereal form flickering as he shared his thoughts. The Kethavar had mastered consciousness itself, able to transfer their minds between bodies and across space. Have you attempted standard diplomatic contact? We sent the usual messages, Zexthai replied. Submit to consortium rule, accept our guidance, and enjoy the benefits of joining the galactic community. They responded with questions. The room fell silent. Questions were not the usual response to consortium ultimatums. What kind of questions? Vorthika asked. Zexthai activated another display showing recorded human transmissions. They wanted to know about our government structure, our technology, our history, our social systems. They asked if we had art, music, literature. They inquired about our food, our customs, our beliefs about the universe. The assembled elite exchanged glances. In their experience, primitive species either submitted immediately upon seeing consortium technology or begged for mercy. They did not ask about art and music. Perhaps they seek to understand their superiors, suggested Counselor Vorthka. Many species attempt to learn about us before accepting their place in the natural order. High Sage Keithnall flickered with what might have been amusement. Or perhaps they are simply curious. Some species possess that trait to an unusual degree. Admiral Zexthai manipulated the display to show recent intelligence reports. Their curiosity extends beyond normal parameters. Our observation posts report that humans study everything they encounter. They examine every asteroid, catalog every planet, and analyze every form of life they discover. They even study each other. Explain, Vorthka commanded. Human colonies share all information freely between each other. When one group learns something new, all groups learn it within days. They have no classified research, no secret technologies, no hidden knowledge. Everything is shared openly. This revelation disturbed the assembled leaders more than they cared to admit. The elite maintained their power through careful control of information and technology. Each species guarded their advantages jealously, sharing only what was necessary to maintain the alliance. Such openness is a weakness, Vorthika declared. It prevents them from developing proper hierarchies and control structures. Zexthai nodded in agreement. Which is why we must act now, before their expansion becomes a genuine nuisance. I propose we dispatch the Infinite Talon battle group to Earth's system. A demonstration of our power will bring them to heel quickly. The Infinite Talon was the pride of the Zephyrian fleet, 12 massive dreadnoughts capable of reducing continents to ash. Each ship carried weapons that could crack moons and shields that could deflect the blast from an exploding star. The battle group had never known defeat in 300 years of service. How long do you estimate the operation will require? Asked High Sage Keithnall. 3 standard cycles, Zexthai replied confidently. 2 for travel, 1 for the humans to formally surrender. The same as any other primitive world. Counselor Vorthka studied the human colonies on the display. What if they resist? Zexthai's forearms spread in a gesture of dismissal. With what? Their ships are powered by controlled explosions. Their weapons fire metal projectiles. Their fastest vessels take months to travel between nearby stars. The infinite Talon could destroy their entire civilization in a single day. The other leaders nodded in agreement. They had seen this pattern countless times before. Primitive species always believed they could resist until they witnessed true elite power. Then they quickly accepted their place in the natural order of the galaxy. Very well, Forthka said formally. The consortium authorizes the infinite Talon deployment. Bring these humans into compliance using standard protocols. As the meeting concluded and the various representatives prepared to return to their homeworlds, none of them paid much attention to the final piece of intelligence in Zexthai's report. Human colonies had recently begun constructing what appeared to be research facilities, rather than military installations. Their ships carried scientists and teachers rather than soldiers and weapons. Most curious of all, human transmissions indicated they were excited about the prospect of meeting other intelligent species. They had prepared welcome messages in hundreds of languages and created cultural exchange programs for any aliens they might encounter. The elite dismissed this as naive, primitive thinking. They had no concept of how such attitudes might affect a species' response to conquest. In their experience, fear was the universal constant. All intelligent beings feared death, feared destruction, feared the loss of everything they held dear. They were about to discover that humans had a different relationship with fear entirely. Admiral. Zexthai returned to his flagship with orders to prepare the infinite Talon for immediate deployment. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, loading weapons and supplies for what they expected to be a routine subjugation mission. The Admiral himself spent time reviewing the standard intimidation protocols that had worked flawlessly on hundreds of other primitive worlds. As the massive battle group prepared to depart Nexus Prime, intelligence reports continued to arrive from the human colonies. The reports painted a picture of a species unlike any the consortium had encountered before. Humans seemed to view every challenge as an opportunity to learn something new. They approached problems with a combination of curiosity and determination that puzzled elite observers. Most disturbing of all, humans appeared to learn from their mistakes rather than being discouraged by them. Failed experiments were studied carefully, with the results shared freely among all human colonies. This behavior violated everything. The elite understood about how primitive species should develop. But Admiral Zexthai felt no concern as his fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the cosmic void. The infinite Talon had crushed every enemy it had ever faced. These curious humans would be no different. He was wrong. The infinite Talon emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, with the precision of a perfectly timed clockwork. 12 massive dreadnoughts materialized in formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could shatter worlds. Around them, hundreds of smaller vessels took position in the classic intimidation pattern that had worked on countless primitive civilizations. Admiral Zexthai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue world that hung in the distance like a jewel against the black of space. His forearms moved across the control surfaces with practiced ease as he prepared to deliver the ultimatum that would end this minor irritation in the consortium's expansion. All stations report ready. Admiral, his communications officer announced. Begin standard first contact protocol, Zexthai commanded. Full spectrum broadcast on all frequencies. The message that went out to Earth was the same one the consortium had used for 1,000 years. It spoke of the natural order of the galaxy, of the wisdom of accepting guidance from superior civilizations, and of the benefits that came with joining the galactic community. It also made clear the consequences of refusal. People of Earth, the Admiral's voice carried across space with the weight of absolute authority. You have 7 of your days to respond with your formal surrender. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world and all its inhabitants. This is your only warning. Then they waited. Within hours, human transmissions began flooding the space around the infinite Talon. But these were not the terrified pleas for mercy that usually followed consortium ultimatums. Instead, the humans were talking to each other. Translation systems are having difficulty processing the volume of communications, reported the intelligence officer, her scaled features showing confusion. The humans appear to be sharing information about our fleet composition, weapon signatures, and tactical formations. Admiral Zexthai leaned forward in his command chair. They are analyzing us? Yes, Admiral. They have identified the class and capabilities of each ship in our formation. They are also discussing our previous encounters with other species, somehow accessing historical records of consortium expansion patterns. This was unexpected behavior. Most primitive species either cowered in fear or made desperate attempts to flee their system. They did not conduct detailed intelligence analysis of their conquerors. What of their military response? The Admiral asked. Minimal visible preparation, Admiral. A few small patrol craft have moved to defensive positions around their homeworld, but no significant fleet deployment. However what? The intelligence officer hesitated. They appear to be evacuating non-essential personnel from military installations, while simultaneously moving civilians into those same facilities. Their behavior does not match any known response pattern. Admiral Zexthai dismissed this information as primitive confusion. Fear often caused lesser species to behave irrationally. He focused instead on the formal response that arrived exactly 6 days and 23 hours after his ultimatum. The message came from someone identified as Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Earth Coalition. She appeared on the main screen as a middle-aged human female with graying hair and eyes that held no trace of fear. Admiral Zexthai of the Zephyrian High Command, she began, somehow knowing his name and species despite this being first contact. We have received your ultimatum and appreciate the time you have given us to consider our response. The Admiral waited for the inevitable surrender, but instead the human continued speaking. We must respectfully decline your offer to join the consortium under the terms you have specified. However, we would very much like to establish peaceful relations with your people and learn about your cultures, your histories, and your scientific achievements. We believe that mutual exchange of knowledge benefits all intelligent species. Zexthai stared at the screen in disbelief. This primitive creature was declining the consortium's generous offer, while simultaneously proposing some sort of equal partnership. Such arrogance was beyond anything in his experience. We understand you may find our response disappointing, Secretary General Santos continued. To demonstrate our peaceful intentions, we are transmitting a collection of human art, music, literature, and scientific research for your consideration. We hope you will find it interesting. The transmission ended, leaving the elite command staff in stunned silence. Admiral, the communications officer announced, we are receiving massive data streams from Earth. They appear to be sending us their entire cultural and scientific database. All of it? The Admiral asked. Everything, Admiral. Art, music, literature, mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, medicine, philosophy, history. They are giving us complete access to their accumulated knowledge. Admiral Zexthai had conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never encountered anything like this. The humans were treating his overwhelming battle fleet as if it were a diplomatic mission. They were responding to his threat of annihilation by offering to share everything they knew. Perhaps they seek to buy time, suggested the tactical officer. Some species attempt to delay the inevitable by offering tributes. But as the days passed, it became clear that the humans were not stalling. They continued their normal activities while simultaneously analyzing every aspect of the infinite talon that they could observe. Worse, they began asking questions. Human scientists transmitted inquiries about elite technology, social structures, and scientific theories. They wanted to know how faster-than-light travel worked, how matter manipulation was achieved, how consciousness transfer was possible. They asked about elite art, elite philosophy, elite concepts of beauty and meaning. Most disturbing of all, they asked about the consortium itself. How had the alliance formed? What were its goals? How did it make decisions? What happened to species that refused to join? They are treating us like a research subject, the intelligence officer reported after analyzing the human transmissions. They appear more interested in understanding us than in avoiding destruction. Admiral Zexthai decided that a demonstration was required. He selected a small asteroid mining station in the outer system, one that appeared to be uninhabited according to elite sensors. A single blast from his flagship's primary weapon would vaporize the facility and show the humans the futility of resistance. The mining station disappeared in a flash of superheated plasma, leaving nothing but scattered debris drifting in the void. The human response was immediate and unexpected. Instead of panic or despair, Every human transmission carried the same emotion: rage. But it was not the wild, uncontrolled fury that the Admiral expected. This was cold, calculating anger. The humans mourned their dead with dignity, while simultaneously studying the weapon signature that had killed them. They analyzed the blast pattern, the energy output, the targeting method, and then they did something that chilled Admiral Zexthai to his core. They attacked. The assault came from all directions at once. Primitive fusion missiles and kinetic projectiles peppered the Infinite Talon's shields in a coordinated strike that should have been impossible for such a scattered, chaotic species. The weapons were laughably weak against elite defenses, but their coordination was flawless. "Damage report," the Admiral commanded as his ship shook under the barrage. "No significant damage, Admiral. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. However, the attack pattern is highly sophisticated. They are hitting us with precisely calculated salvos designed to test our defensive capabilities." Admiral Zexthai realized with growing unease that the humans were not trying to destroy his fleet. They were studying it. Every missile that struck his shields gathered data about elite technology. Every kinetic round that bounced harmlessly off his armor provided information about elite metallurgy and construction techniques. The humans were treating his demonstration of overwhelming force as a learning opportunity. As the battle continued, the Admiral watched his tactical displays with growing concern. The human attacks were evolving in real time, becoming more sophisticated with each wave. Their targeting improved, their coordination became more precise, and their weapon efficiency increased markedly. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with obvious unease, "the humans appear to be learning from our defensive responses. Each subsequent attack wave is more effective than the last." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zexthai felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. He was facing an enemy that treated warfare as an educational experience, and he had no idea how to respond to such a concept. The war for Earth had begun, but it was unlike any conflict in the history of the consortium. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to understand, and that made them far more dangerous than any enemy the elite had ever faced. 3 months had passed since the Infinite Talon arrived in the Sol system, and Admiral Zexthai found himself facing an impossible situation. What should have been a simple demonstration of power had become a nightmare that defied everything he understood about warfare and conquest. Standing before his command display, the Admiral studied tactical reports that made no sense according to any military doctrine he had ever learned. His fleet still maintained overwhelming superiority in firepower and technology, yet somehow the humans were winning. "Report," he commanded his intelligence officer, though he dreaded what he might hear. "We have lost contact with 3 more vessels." "Admiral," she announced, her scaled features showing the strain of months of inexplicable warfare. "The destroyers Void Strike and Dark Lance plus the cruiser Eternal Dominion. All 3 ships simply vanished from our sensor network during routine patrol operations." Admiral Zexthai's forearms clenched into fists. This was the part that disturbed him most. His ships were not being destroyed in glorious battle. They were disappearing without a trace, as if they had never existed at all. "Any distress signals? Emergency transmissions?" "Negative, Admiral. The ships were conducting normal operations, then they simply stopped responding to communications. Long-range sensors show no debris fields, no energy signatures consistent with weapon impacts, no signs of battle damage." The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. "What do our automated systems tell us?" The tactical officer's expression was grim. "The few emergency beacons we have recovered paint a disturbing picture, Admiral. The ships appear to have been boarded but not attacked. Internal sensors show human life signs moving through elite vessels, but no signs of combat or resistance." This information troubled Admiral Zexthai more than any battle report could have. His crews were among the finest warriors in the galaxy, trained from birth to fight and die for consortium glory. The idea that they would surrender their ships without a fight was unthinkable. "Perhaps the humans have developed some form of mind control technology," suggested the intelligence officer. "Some species have experimented with such weapons." But deeper investigation revealed a more disturbing truth. The humans were not controlling elite minds. They were convincing them. Recovered audio recordings from the lost ships told an incredible story. Human boarding parties approached elite vessels not as conquerors but as students, They came with questions rather than weapons, seeking to understand elite culture, technology, and society. The recordings revealed conversations that should have been impossible. Elite officers who had been trained to view all other species as inferior found themselves engaged in philosophical discussions with humans who treated them as equals. The humans asked about elite art, elite science, elite dreams and fears and hopes. Most disturbing of all, the elite crews began answering. "Admiral," his communications officer announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the lost cruiser Eternal Dominion." Zexthai felt a spark of hope. Perhaps one of his ships had escaped whatever fate had befallen the others. "Put it through." The face that appeared on his main screen was familiar yet wrong. Captain Vorthek had served under the Admiral for 15 years, a reliable officer with an exemplary record. But something had changed in his eyes. Where once there had been the cold certainty of elite superiority, now there was something else, curiosity. "Admiral Zexthai," Captain Vorthek said, his voice carrying none of the desperation one would expect from a captured officer. "I am transmitting from the human research vessel Curiosity. I am unharmed and have been treated with complete respect." "Captain, what is your status?" the Admiral demanded. "Are you being held prisoner?" "No, Admiral. I am here voluntarily. The humans have shown me things, technologies and concepts that challenge everything we thought we knew about the universe. They have achievements that we missed in our initial assessment." Admiral Zexthai felt a chill run through his body. "Explain." "They have solved mathematical theorems that our greatest minds abandoned as impossible. They have developed new approaches to physics that make our technology seem primitive. But more than that, Admiral, they have something we never considered. They work together." The transmission continued, but the Admiral found himself unable to focus on the specific words. What he was hearing violated everything he understood about the natural order. Elite species were superior because they had evolved beyond the need for cooperation. They had achieved individual excellence that transcended the weakness of group dependence. Yet Captain Vorthek was describing a species that had achieved greatness, not despite their cooperation, but because of it. "The humans do not compete with each other, Admiral. They collaborate. When one human discovers something new, all humans benefit. When one group faces a problem, other groups contribute solutions. They have turned their entire species into a single learning organism." The implications of this revelation struck Admiral Zexthai like a physical blow. If the humans truly shared all knowledge freely among their species, then every encounter with elite technology made them stronger. Every battle they fought taught them new lessons that spread instantly across their entire civilization. The humans were not just learning from the consortium's mistakes. They were learning from the consortium's successes and improving upon them. "Captain Vorthek," the Admiral said carefully, "are you defecting to the human cause?" The pause before the answer lasted an eternity. "I am not defecting, Admiral. I am evolving. The humans have offered to teach me things that the consortium never could. They want to understand our technology, yes, but they also want to understand our culture, our history, our individual perspectives. They see value in what I know not because I am elite, but because I am unique." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Zexthai staring at a blank screen. Around him, his command staff exchanged worried glances. They had just witnessed something unprecedented in consortium history. An elite officer voluntarily joining another species, but the revelations were far from over. "Admiral," his tactical officer announced, "sensors are detecting unusual ship movements throughout the system. The vessels appear to be human in design, but they are exhibiting performance characteristics beyond anything in our initial assessments." The tactical display showed human ships moving with impossible grace and speed. Their energy signatures indicated power systems that should not have been possible with primitive fusion technology. Their maneuvers suggested propulsion methods that the humans had not possessed when the Infinite Talon first arrived. "They are using our technology," the Admiral realized, "but they are improving it." The evidence was undeniable. Human ships now moved with a combination of human innovation and elite engineering that surpassed either species' individual capabilities. They had taken consortium advances and enhanced them with human creativity and collaborative problem-solving. Worse still, the humans were not keeping these improvements to themselves. Every new development was immediately shared among all human vessels, creating a feedback loop of continuous advancement that accelerated with each passing day. "Admiral," his intelligence officer announced, "we are receiving communications from the approaching human fleet." They are requesting permission to board and conduct peaceful exchanges of information. Admiral Zexthai looked at the tactical display showing his remaining ships surrounded by an increasingly sophisticated human force. He could still destroy Earth, but the humans were no longer confined to Earth. They had spread their hybrid technology throughout the system and beyond. The humans had not defeated the infinite Talon through superior firepower. They had absorbed it, learning from every elite advance and turning consortium strengths into human improvements. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zexthai faced an enemy that became stronger with every defeat they suffered and more knowledgeable with every victory they achieved. The humans were not trying to conquer the elite. They were trying to understand them. And understanding, the Admiral realized with growing horror, was far more dangerous than conquest. Because conquest left room for resistance. Understanding left room only for transformation. And the humans were very, very good at helping others transform. Admiral Zexthai stood on the surface of Luna, watching Earth rise over the horizon like a blue beacon of hope or doom, depending on one's perspective. The ancient moon had been transformed into a fortress in the desperate week since he had received news that chilled him to his core. The reinforcement fleets from 3 different elite homeworlds had gone silent. 7 full battle groups, containing the finest ships and most experienced crews in consortium space, had simply vanished without a trace. No distress signals, no final transmissions, no debris fields. They had entered human-controlled space and simply disappeared, as if the void itself had swallowed them whole. Now Luna represented the last stand of the infinite. Talon, the moon's surface bristled with defensive installations powered by the combined technologies of 3 different elite species. Energy shields capable of deflecting stellar bombardment covered the command bunkers. Weapon emplacements that could crack continents dotted the landscape like metallic flowers blooming in the airless soil. Status report, the Admiral commanded as he entered the primary command center, carved deep into Luna's rocky interior. Perimeter sensors show multiple contacts approaching from Earth orbit, reported his tactical officer. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Admiral Zexthai studied the sensor displays with growing unease. The approaching human fleet should not have existed according to everything the consortium knew about primitive civilizations. The ships moved with perfect coordination, their energy signatures indicating power systems that surpassed anything in elite arsenals. But what truly disturbed him was the recognition software's analysis. Many of the approaching vessels were identified as elite designs, but they had been modified beyond anything the original builders had imagined possible. "Sir," his intelligence officer announced, "we are receiving identification signals from the fleet. Several ships are broadcasting elite authorization codes." "Impossible. All elite vessels in the system have either been destroyed or lost." "No, sir. The codes are authentic. We are detecting the signatures of the lost destroyers Void Strike and Dark Lance, the cruiser Eternal Dominion, and, Admiral, we are reading the command signatures of Admiral Kethmal's entire First Fleet." Admiral Zexthai felt the foundations of his understanding crumble. Admiral Kethmal had commanded one of the reinforcement fleets dispatched to deal with the human problem. If his ships were now approaching Luna under human control, it meant something unthinkable had occurred. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. The main screen activated to show the bridge of what had once been Admiral Kethmal's flagship. But the being sitting in the command chair was not Kethmal. It was a human female wearing what appeared to be a combination of elite military dress and human civilian clothing. Behind her, both human and elite crew members worked side by side at control stations. "Admiral Zexthai," the human said, her voice carrying the authority of command. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Joint Exploration Vessel Unity. We come seeking peaceful resolution to this conflict." "Where is Admiral Kethmal?" Zexthai demanded. "Admiral Kethmal is aboard the research vessel Discovery, working with our science teams to develop new approaches to faster-than-light travel. He volunteered for the assignment after we demonstrated some improvements to his ship's propulsion systems." The word "volunteered" struck Admiral Zexthai like a physical blow. Elite officers did not volunteer to serve under primitive species. They certainly did not volunteer to be research subjects for beings they considered inferior. "What have you done to him?" Captain Chen's expression showed genuine confusion. "We haven't done anything to him, Admiral. We offered to share our research findings and asked if he wanted to contribute his expertise to the project. He said yes. Elite officers do not collaborate with inferior species. Admiral, Captain Chen said gently, I don't think you understand what's been happening here. We're not inferior to you. We're different from you, and those differences, when combined with your strengths, create possibilities that neither of us could achieve alone. The screen split to show another section of the human fleet. Admiral Zexthai recognized the face that appeared. Captain Vorthek, the officer who had first defected to the human cause. But he was not alone. Beside him stood a human scientist and what appeared to be a HFY consciousness transfer specialist. Admiral, Captain Vorthek said, we have made discoveries that will change everything. The humans have shown us how to combine our individual technologies into something greater than any of us imagined possible. You have betrayed everything the consortium stands for. No, Admiral, I have discovered what the consortium could become. The transmission showed scenes that defied Admiral Zexthai's understanding of the natural order. Elite and human engineers working together to design new technologies. Zephyrian matter manipulators teaching humans their techniques while learning human approaches to material science. HFY consciousness specialists sharing their knowledge while gaining insights into human neural architecture. Most disturbing of all, everyone involved seemed genuinely excited about their collaborations. This is impossible, Admiral Zexthai whispered. Different species cannot work together as equals. There must be a hierarchy. There must be order. Captain Chen's voice carried infinite patience. Admiral, why must there be a hierarchy? Why can't there simply be partnership? Because some species are naturally superior to others. The elite have evolved beyond the weaknesses that plague primitive civilizations. Have you? Captain Chen asked. Because from our perspective, the consortium's greatest weakness is its inability to learn from others. You have amazing technologies and incredible capabilities, but you've trapped yourselves in the belief that you have nothing left to learn. The human ships were now in orbital bombardment range of Luna, but no weapons were charging. No targeting systems were locking on to the elite defensive positions. The humans were approaching as if this were a diplomatic mission rather than a military operation. Admiral, Captain Chen continued, we know you could destroy Earth. Your remaining ships have that capability. But what would that accomplish? You would eliminate one world while human colonies throughout this system and beyond continue to exist. More importantly, you would destroy the opportunity to learn things that could benefit your entire species. What could primitives possibly teach the elite? The screen changed to show technical specifications that made Admiral Zexthai's breath catch in his throat. The humans had taken elite faster-than-light technology and improved its efficiency by 300%. They had enhanced Zephyrian matter manipulation to work at the quantum level. They had found ways to transfer consciousness between different types of neural architectures. We can teach you to collaborate, Captain Chen said simply, and collaboration, Admiral, is the most powerful technology in the universe. As if to demonstrate her point, the approaching human fleet began a maneuver that should have been impossible. Ships of different designs and capabilities moved in perfect synchronization, their various technologies working together to create effects that no single vessel could achieve alone. Elite weapon specialists gasped as they watched human ships use combined elite technologies to generate shield effects that could probably deflect the explosion of a star. Elite engineers stared in amazement as hybrid propulsion systems allowed massive vessels to maneuver like fighter craft. This is what partnership looks like, Admiral, Captain Chen explained. This is what we could build together if you're willing to learn. Admiral Zexthai looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. He saw doubt in their eyes, doubt that had been growing ever since the first elite ships had disappeared into human space. They were beginning to wonder if their lifelong beliefs about elite superiority might be wrong. You want us to surrender, he said. No, Admiral. We want you to evolve. The word hung in the air like a challenge and a promise. Admiral Zexthai realized that this was not a battle he could win through force. The humans had turned his greatest weapons into learning opportunities and his most elite personnel into willing collaborators. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zexthai faced an enemy that defeated him, not by destroying what he valued, but by offering him something better. And the most terrifying part was that he was beginning to want what they offered. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium convened exactly 1 year after the Infinite Talon had departed for Earth's system. The crystal chamber atop Nexus Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from dozens of elite species gathered around the starlight table, their faces bearing expressions that had never been seen in this hallowed hall before. Fear. Counselor Vorthica activated the central display with trembling cybernetic fingers. The holographic image showed a map of known space, but something was terribly wrong with it. Large sections that had once glowed with the steady light of consortium control now pulsed with an unfamiliar energy signature. "Status report," she commanded, though her voice lacked its usual authority. High Sage Kethnol flickered into partial visibility, his ethereal form unstable with stress. 7 battle groups dispatched to the Sol system. 7 battle groups that have made no contact with Consortium Command in over 6 months. No distress signals, no status reports, no request for reinforcement or resupply. Surely some automated systems remain functional, suggested Counselor Thexran of the Vorth Empire. Deep space monitoring stations, emergency beacons, something? All silent, Vorthka replied grimly. It is as if our finest fleet simply vanished from existence. The assembled elite struggled to process this information. In 3,000 years of consortium expansion, no primitive species had ever successfully resisted elite forces. Most surrendered immediately upon seeing the overwhelming technological superiority of their conquerors. Those few that attempted resistance were quickly crushed by precise application of overwhelming force. The idea that humans could somehow make entire elite fleets disappear was beyond their comprehension. Perhaps they fled, suggested one representative hopefully. Strategic withdrawal in the face of unexpected resistance. High Sage Kethanol's form solidified enough to convey his disapproval. Elite officers do not flee. They would rather die with honor than abandon their posts. Then they are dead, Vorthka stated flatly. 7 fleets destroyed by primitive humans with chemical rockets and metal projectiles. The implications are troubling. But even as she spoke, long-range sensors were detecting something that would prove her assumption wrong. Ships were approaching Nexus Prime from the direction of human space. Ships that bore familiar energy signatures mixed with technologies that should not have existed. Incoming vessels, announced the sensor technician, his voice barely above a whisper. Multiple contacts, estimated arrival in 4 hours. Classification. The technician's hands shook as he operated his instruments. Mixed human and elite designs, sir. Some vessels are broadcasting consortium identification codes, but they have been heavily modified. Power signatures indicate technological capabilities beyond our current understanding. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans were coming to Nexus Prime, the heart of consortium power, and they were flying ships that had once belonged to the elite. How many ships? Vorthka asked. Difficult to determine, Counselor. They appear to be using some form of spatial folding technology to compress their fleet formation. Conservative estimate. Several hundred vessels. Several hundred ships implied that the humans had not merely defeated elite forces, but had somehow convinced them to join the human cause. The mathematical impossibility of such a scenario left the assembled representatives struggling to maintain their composure. Open all communication channels, Vorthka ordered. If they wish to negotiate, we will hear their terms. The main display activated to show the bridge of a vessel that defied easy categorization. The ship combined human engineering with elite technologies in ways that created something entirely new. Standing at the center of the bridge was a figure that made the elite representatives question their understanding of reality itself. Admiral Zexithai stood beside a human woman, both wearing uniforms that blended elite military tradition with human design aesthetics. Behind them, crew members from multiple species worked together at control stations with an efficiency that should have been impossible given their different physiologies and thought patterns. Greetings, honored representatives of the Galactic Consortium, the human woman said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Species Alliance. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and mutual understanding. Counselor Vorthka found her voice with difficulty. Admiral Zexthai, report your status. The Zephyrian officer straightened to attention, but something fundamental had changed in his bearing. Where once there had been rigid military formality, now there was something else, contentment. Counselor Vorthka, I am pleased to report that the mission to Earth has been a complete success, though not in the manner originally intended. Explain. We have successfully established contact with the human species and negotiated a comprehensive alliance that benefits all parties involved. Human technological innovation combined with elite engineering capabilities has produced advances that exceed our wildest projections. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Counselor Vorthka, we understand this situation may seem confusing from your perspective. Please allow us to demonstrate what we have accomplished together. The display shifted to show technical specifications that left the assembled elite speechless. Faster-than-light drives that operated at efficiencies previously thought impossible. Weapon systems that combined the precision of elite targeting with human adaptive algorithms. Shield technologies that drew power from multiple dimensional sources. Most impressive of all were the consciousness transfer systems that allowed different species to share knowledge and experience directly, breaking down the barriers that had always existed between different forms of intelligence. This is what collaboration produces, Admiral Chen explained. Not the subjugation of one species by another, but the elevation of all species through shared knowledge and mutual respect. Impossible, Vorthka whispered. Different species cannot achieve true equality. There must be natural hierarchies. Admiral Zexthai's expression showed infinite patience. Counselor, I held the same beliefs for my entire career. But the humans taught me something that the consortium never could. The difference between superiority and uniqueness. Explain. Each species possesses unique capabilities that others lack. Humans excel at pattern recognition and adaptive problem-solving. Zephyrians manipulate matter at the molecular level. Kethvar transfer consciousness across space and time. Vorth Empire engineers create mechanical systems of impossible complexity. The display showed mixed crews working together, each species contributing their unique abilities to create solutions that no single group could achieve alone. The humans do not seek to replace elite capabilities, Admiral Chen continued. They seek to combine them with human innovations to create something greater than the sum of its parts. And what do they ask in return? Vorthka demanded. Nothing that we are not willing to give freely, Admiral Zexthai replied. They ask for knowledge, for understanding, for partnership. They offer the same in return. The transmission showed scenes from human space that challenged everything the consortium believed about the natural order. Elite officers teaching human students advanced physics while learning human approaches to creative problem-solving. Mixed research teams developing technologies that neither species could have created independently. Cultural exchange programs that enriched both civilizations. Most disturbing of all, everyone involved appeared genuinely happy. This violates everything we understand about species interaction, High Sage Kethanol protested. Perhaps, Admiral Chen said gently, what you understand about species interaction is incomplete. The chamber fell silent as the representatives struggled to process what they were seeing. The humans had not conquered the elite through force. They had not enslaved them through superior technology. They had convinced them to voluntarily abandon the fundamental principles that had guided consortium expansion for millennia. What do you want from us? Vorthka asked finally. Admiral Chen's smile was warm and genuine. We want to offer you the same thing we offered everyone else. The opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become more than you ever imagined possible. And if we refuse? Then we will respect your decision and continue our expansion into unoccupied space. We will not force anyone to join us. Partnership only works when all parties choose it freely. The transmission ended, leaving the elite representatives alone with their thoughts and fears. Outside the crystal chamber, human ships waited patiently in orbit around Nexus Prime. They made no aggressive moves, charged no weapons, issued no ultimatums. They simply waited, broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. We come in peace. We want to understand. Will you teach us? For the first time in their history, the elite faced a choice that would determine not just their survival, but their evolution. They could maintain their rigid hierarchies and slowly fade into irrelevance, or they could embrace the terrifying possibility that they still had something to learn. The humans had shown them that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. Now they had to decide whether they were brave enough to explore it. In the end, curiosity proved stronger than fear. It always had, and it always would.